This video is powered by the Convention Reviews Facebook page. Make sure to go follow it in the link in the description to stay up to date with all things Convention Reviews. This was my third year at Anime Midwest, as well as their third year being held in the Hyatt Regency O'Hare in Rosemont, Illinois. Like last year, they used parts of the Donald E. Stephens Convention Center for things like the dealer's room and a few panel rooms. I am so glad they've continued to expand more into the convention center. Using more room makes it feel much less crowded, even though there were more people there. One of the few things I don't like about this location is that they don't really have a proper food court. They have a few concessions set up in the convention center, but they're very overpriced and not really worth it. For some cons in this location, like Anime Central, this is very aggravating. But you don't have to worry about that at Anime Midwest. The con runs what they call the Con Suite in the Hyatt, where for most all hours of the day and night, you can come and get free ramen, rice, and pop. This is an amazing idea that really helps keep their attendees from going too long without eating, which is a problem at a lot of cons. I wish more cons would do something like this. If you don't drink pop, don't worry. They also have a ton of places to get water set up all over the convention. At least for me, they were never empty when I needed them. First of all, registration went very well. This part of the con was very organized. On Friday, if you were to look at the lines, it would have seemed huge, but it was actually being handled much better than it looked. Most people got through the lines in less than an hour, and if not, it wasn't too much longer. The game room at this year's Anime Midwest felt a lot better than their game room in past years. Though it was still smaller than I would have liked, it was definitely a step up, and that's what really matters. This year they had a ton of pachinko machines as well as a lot more arcade machines. These were all a ton of fun, and I hope they continue to expand the game room more in coming years. Once again, they had a room mostly dedicated to concerts as well as a separate main events room. I still think something like this is a great idea. This meant that at any given time, there was probably some type of concert going on that you could go waste some time in and listen to some good music. This was, however, the first year that I felt the main events room might be getting a bit too small for the convention. I went to a few panels where people were turned away at the door because it filled up fast. Though it wasn't a lot, it did happen. I also had a lot of people come up to me and tell me they were being turned away from a lot of panels. It did feel like some of the bigger events were being held in rooms that were too small. It would be nice to see them move the main events room to a bigger room, maybe one in the convention center? It seems like the attendance has gone up enough that it's now time to increase the room size as well. Not that they didn't try. They did use the much bigger ballroom in the Hyatt that normally was not used, though it was split into 3 rooms. It almost seems like splitting it in half would work better for the size the con is getting to. As far as panels, the last thing I want to talk about is how much stuff was running late over the weekend. First was the concerts, which ended up being over an hour behind. I don't really know why, but it seemed as though they didn't put much or any setup time in the schedule for the bands, causing everything to run late. There were also a lot of panels put on by the con that ran late this year, most prominently the Masquerade. Of course, this is the one event that starts late at most cons, but I've recently been to a lot of cons that got it started on time, and it was very nice. I just don't really understand why it started around an hour late. The contest itself wasn't even that long. I'm sure there was a reason, like people in it not showing up on time, or who knows what. But I would really love to see them get this event started on time. This year they were also premiering a new Studio Ghibli movie at the con, which is amazing. I hope in the future they continue to get more exclusive things of this nature. But this also ran very late. I was hosting a panel that started at the same time, and after the panel a lot of people came up to me and told me that they came to my panel instead because the movie was so late. Even after my panel had ended and we took a lot of time to take pictures and talk with all of our fans, the movie still hadn't started. The guests they brought in this year were pretty good. They always managed to get a lot of people to come to their con, despite Anime Expo happening on the same weekend. It really felt like there was someone there for everyone. They once again had Sleeping Samurai, a group that lets you fight your friends or groups of strangers with foam weapons. This is always really fun, and I'm glad they continue to get them for this convention. They also had a maid cafe again. From everything I heard, it was really good, but once again, I missed it, so I can't talk too much about it. The last issue I had was the lack of staff. The staff there was very nice and very helpful, but there just didn't seem to be a lot of them. It was honestly hard to find staff members to help with things half the time, and a ton of panels weren't being checked for badges. They had people walking around looking for volunteers and a table where you could sign up, but it just wasn't enough. If you've ever wanted to staff a con, please volunteer next year, as it seemed like they may need the help. Finally, I have to talk about the raves. Like every year, they were very good raves. The lighting was very good and really helps make the rave feel even better. I will say that my whole group enjoyed Fridays more than Saturdays. We just couldn't really get into the music as much on Saturday. The size of this con is medium. Location gets a 10 out of 10. This location still holds Anime Midwest perfectly. I would be pretty upset if they decided to move. Organization gets an 8.8 out of 10. While it was still very organized, it just felt a bit more hectic than last year. This may have had to do with the lack of staff, but all in all, it really didn't ruin anything. The dealer's room gets a 9 out of 10. I didn't really talk a lot about the dealer's room, mostly because it was basically the same as last year's. Didn't really expand much, but also didn't get any worse. Still a great dealer's room. The game room gets a 9.5 out of 10. A huge step up for this convention, but still not as big as I would like to see it for the size of this con. But that's okay, as there was still a ton to do and play in there. A great area to spend some time. The guests get a 10 out of 10. They had a lot of different types of people there, from voice actors to YouTubers and even a lot of bands. Surely everyone could find someone they like. Panels get a 7 out of 10. The panels were good once everything got going, but a lot of late starts and smaller panel rooms kept this score from being higher. Staff gets an 8 out of 10. The staff that was there was very nice and helpful. We had no problems with them at all. But like I said, it just felt like there weren't enough of them. You would see them all over in big events, but in other areas of the con, they would be nowhere to be found. Rave gets a 10 out of 10. Anime Midwest always puts on great raves, and I don't think I've ever had a bad thing to say about them. All in all, it was another great year at Anime Midwest. I feel like this convention is slowly becoming a convention you must go to if you're in the Midwest. I would love to see it expand and grow in a few areas, but honestly, the con is pretty great how it is. Before I give you the final score, I do just want to make sure you know that since last year's con, my grading system has been made a bit more harsh. So even though the score is lower, I felt this con was still as good as last year or better. At the end of the day, I give Anime Midwest 2015 a 9 out of 10.